Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, discussing all things audiobooks with the authors that write the stories and the narrators that perform them. Brought to you by Viviana, Enchantress of Books.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 3 of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. Today, I am chatting with author LJ Evans. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to get to know you better and learn about your books and things like that. Because as your website says, that you write aching, heartfelt, slow burns. Which I love a slow burn at times. It's like sometimes you're like, ooh, that tension. So, as well as with deep, relatable characters and true friendships and families dynamics. So I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be a fun chat. Why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been writing, and how you got started?
Okay, well, let's see. So the first thing I tell most people is I've been writing my whole life. So when people ask me that, they're like, when did you start writing? And I'm like, I can't remember a time in my life when I wasn't writing. Like, it's just been part of my life forever. But in fact, my first story that I ever wrote finished. I'm older, so my books were all written in spiral bound notebooks with tiny itty bitty print, that you could barely read. And my first novel was a romance novel that was fan fiction before fan fiction was kind of a thing. And I had John Schneider from Dukes of Hazzard. He was my hero. And he was famous, and he found me. It was a total celebrity romance, right? It's hilarious. I was in 6th grade, so you can imagine how bad it was. But so I've been writing my whole life. I did a lot of different kinds of writing. So I did screenplays, and I did short stories, and I've done novels. But I never really did a ton of it, and with any of it until I was older. And my child had gone off to college with a creative writing degree. And I had a story that I had been playing around with for a couple of years. And I was like, this is my time to do something. I want to put my book out there. And so I did. And that was in 2017. But so I've only been publishing since 2017 was my 5th year of being in this book verse. But when they ask how I started, it's like, I don't know how to tell you how I started. I've just always been writing.
Well, that's the how. You just started,
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's just never not been in my life, I guess. I could always tell when I wasn't writing enough, because I could feel the tension in my life, in my body. I needed it as an outlet for myself. So some people need to golf or run, or I needed to write. It was just my way of releasing energy.
Wow. Okay. That's good to know too, because sometimes we don't know that that's what it's manifesting as. And we're going, I don't like golf, so that's not going to happen. But no. But a lot of authors that I've spoken to have a lot of things in common. But one of the things is that they seem to have been writing and have a love of stories from a very, very young age, aside from other things happening in between. But it's something that, kind of sticks with you. And the fact that you were writing fan fiction, it's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was so old that it wasn't called fan fiction. There was no such thing as fan fiction when I started writing it.
There wasn't, just the label hadn't been created yet, but still.
That's right.
Yeah. That's right. Your titles are within the subgenre of romance of contemporary romance. What is it about the contemporary romance that you love so much?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I've played around with a lot of genres over the years. I wrote historical in my head. I wrote fantasy with my sister a lot. We did a lot of different things. And I think for me, the pieces about books and stories that always attract me are the things that I can relate to most. So real life kind of situations that people are kind of overcoming, that resiliency of humanity, and the way things can be really bad and yet we just get muddled through it in our own different ways. And that's what attracts me, is the things that are in our world already. So I think that's why contemporary is the genre that seems best for me, because I like showing pieces of our own world, I guess.
Okay. So if you had another favorite genre, what would that be?
For reading or for writing? Because that's
that is true. Good question there, LJ.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Obviously, I'm curious about both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My genres for reading are really wide. Like I read everything. I read mysteries, I read contemporary women's fiction, I read almost all the types of romance you can get. The only thing I really don't read is horror. I'm not a horror person. So from my reading perspective, I read everything. For writing, I feel like the contemporary romance, obviously, the first book I wrote was kind of on the border of being young adult. And I have a lot of interest in the young adult genres. And then I liked a lot of fantasy, paranormal, romance kind of things. So I have a book duet that I play around with a lot when I'm not on deadline for one of my regular novels. And I'm hoping that someday I'll put those out maybe for a publisher to grab. And those are paranormal and new adult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's for my writing.
Mm-hmm. So when you say paranormal stories, what does that entail for you? Because, paranormals can have shifters and vampires, fairies and magic. Oh my. So what does that story look like entail?
Yeah, I don't feel like it's as dark as some paranormal, because some paranormal can be really dark.
Yeah.
So for me, the storyline is a fairy godmother storyline. So it's on the lighter end of it. So I think it would be more like a YA paranormal kind of than some of the darker stuff. So not shifter, but magical.
Magic. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I always like a good magical book when there's it almost reads like a contemporary, except that they can do magic.
Exactly. Those are the ones that I love most.
Yeah. Those actually I've been able to enjoy those very much. I mean, I'm all for a shifter, don't get me wrong, but sometimes when it's one of those, it just reads like a contemporary, because then I'm like, well, who else do I know that might have some of that magic? Do I? And I haven't just tapped into it. Oh my.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's Chocolate and Sin. Kylie Scott. I think it's Kylie Scott. Chocolate and Sin books. That series is amazing. I really love that series. And it's kind of that. I mean, there are shifters in it too, but she's magical, but it's really almost like your real world, but like alternate universe world, I guess.
Yeah. And I've also read some PNR that are not heavy or dark or anything like that include other, universes and creation of worlds. So that's what I love about romance. It runs the gamut. You can go very light and funny and fluffy, including Hallmark, where there is everything fades to black, to the more darker, oh no, kind of be in a right state of mind to kind of read it too. So it's always fun. So I'm like, what a mood am I in today?
That's right. And there's something for everybody, which is, I think, is just amazing, because there's not many things in life that there's something for everybody, right?
Yes, exactly. So where do you get your ideas from for your stories?
So I get my ideas from stories a lot from music. And like, if you were on my website, you probably noticed that lyrics of songs will absolutely inspire me. Either I'll write some random scene that has nothing to do with anything I'm writing, or it just adds more details to the story I'm already creating. Sometimes the songs will inspire a whole new book, and sometimes they just kind of add on to things that I'm already creating. My very first book that I published, My Life as a Country Album, is all Taylor Swift songs. And my child and I were going to a Taylor Swift concert. It was her Red tour, so that's a long time ago. And we had like all her songs up to then like on repeat in the car. Like we were for like a couple weeks before we went to the concert. We were listening to them every time we were in the car. And Oh My Mary's song came on. And I saw these two little kids and their parents and the life that they led, like playing together on the street and in the creek and fishing together. And every song after that just kind of added like to their story about what happened to them. So that book like literally wrote itself in like, I don't know, 4 weeks, maybe at the most. And it was just like this, like came out of me like, I don't know. It was amazing. Like I was going to say vomit, but that's not a good image.
No, we need to come up with something more magical. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that magic we were talking about, right? Yeah. It came out like magic. But I didn't do anything. I loved the story, but after I finished it, I just shut it down. I didn't do anything forever with it. And then I would come back every couple months, open it up, reread it, and go, God, I love this story so much. And I did send out a few queries to some agents. Not a lot. I wasn't real consistent or pushy about it. Like I didn't make it my goal to get an agent. But every time I opened the story, I was in love with it more and more. I sent it to my sister, who's been my like first draft reader for my entire life. And she called me. I was in the airport with our child and my husband. We were in the security line going through security. And my sister called, she's sobbing. And I'm like, what's wrong? Are you okay? Like panicked. And she's like, your book was amazing. It made me cry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in the line for security. You're crying. I'm all freaked out. But yeah, so she would not stop after she read it. She's like, you have to publish this book. Like, I don't care if you self-publish it. You have to. Like, so she was on me constantly after that. And then when my child went away to college, like I said, I kind of felt she was a creative writing major, and I kind of was like, not jealous, but like I wanted to do this for myself. It was kind of like a bucket list. I want to be out there. I want to have a book. If it's the only one I ever do, I want it out there. And it wasn't me. I loved the book so much. I wanted to give it to people to read. And so I finally just hit publish. I was still teaching at the time, and it was spring break, and I had been doing some things behind the scenes to kind of get it ready. I knew nothing about publishing. I knew nothing about romance world. Like I should have done so many things differently. But for me, it was kind of like a bucket list, not quite a vanity press, but it was just something I needed inside me to know that I had gotten out there. And so over spring break, I hit publish, and then I kind of just put out to my friends and family. I'm like, oh, I did this little thing. And people were amazed. Like I hadn't even told my husband I was hitting publish. Like he knew I wrote it, but he didn't even know I was doing it. And he's like, oh my God. And so then I had people reading it, friends and family. Like I just knew nothing. Like I put the book as free for the first 5 days that it was out. Like it was just, so my friends and family wouldn't have to pay for it, right? I knew nothing. But after a while, I had people like contacting me who had read the book. Like I didn't do any promo. Like I didn't know anything. I was clueless. And I had random people like contacting me and just telling me how the story had impacted them and how they knew people with the same health issues and had similar situations happen to them, and how much it meant to them to read about it and see it. And that was amazing. And then there were people that were asking for more of that world and those characters. And so that's how it came about.
I love the fact that you had the courage to hit publish, because that takes a lot, especially if you, when you're, doubting yourself or when you don't know a whole lot about the industry. But the fact that you just did it, that is just fantastic. So kudos to you on that.
Well, I wish I hadn't done it that way, like looking back, right? But it does take everybody who tells me that they're writing and they're like, oh, I feel like I'm too old or it's passed me by, or I'm like, it's never too late. Like, I mean, you can be in your 70s and 80s and publish for the first time. Like, who cares? Like, it's all that life experience that you gain adds to those stories. But I do tell people, like, do better than me. Go do some research, show up at some things. People always ask, and I'm like, I'm not related to Alessandro Torre's world at all. But if I had started somewhere, I wish I had gone to Inkers Con, because I think that it's such a great place for beginners to start and learn about the industry. And so that's one of the things I always tell people if they ask, they're like, what should I do? And I'm like, go to Inkers Con. You don't even have to go in person. You can go online if you're a person who can do videos and actually listen and learn that way. But yeah, so thank you. It does take a lot of courage, and I tell people all the time, it's a really huge leap, but you won't regret it.
Yeah. Also, at the same time, maybe if you would have done the research at that time, it would have prevented you from hitting the publish button, knowing that there was X amount of work, or maybe you know, the self-doubt, anything that comes in. I mean, imposter syndrome pops up all the damn time. So having that knowledge in advance could have potentially prevented you to some extent, maybe, right? So
that's such a positive way to look at it. Yes, it's such a positive way to look at it, because you're right. Like, I mean, I could have gotten really overwhelmed by all the steps and all the things that I didn't know how to do, because there's a lot in this industry that even 5 years later, I'm like, I still don't know how to do that.
It's okay. That's the other thing too. As you continue to grow in the, in the community, in the industry, there's you learn that there's other people that can do it for you. And if little things like that are like, yes. But that's also too that taking that leap is sometimes, it's a lot of different factors. The right time, the right moment, maybe not knowing enough, because if you knew too much, you'd be like, oh, hell no. Or the opposite. There's some individuals that will not take the leap unless they know all the ins and outs, and that's okay, but that's how they function. I think that sometimes I'm a mix, but there's more times in my life I think I would have wanted to be the one that just hit the publish button of whatever the case was without having all the knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's a little more fun too sometimes. True. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So in all these books that you've now written, there's always, like, of course, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the relationship building and stuff like that. But there's also different scenes in the books that, as you're writing it, they kind of get created. Is there a particular type of scene that you love, that you like? It's like the love, like when they first meet scene, or when the fight happens, or whatever. What is that scene for you?
I think it changes by the book. So, and I think, again, some of that depends on where I'm getting my inspiration. So if I was inspired by a song for the book, I can't wait to get to that scene, right? So I might have even written that scene, and then I'm working toward that scene in the book all along. So I definitely think sometimes it depends on what inspired me. But I do really love that moment of the first kiss, where whatever's gone on to get them there, and they both kind of hit that moment of, I'm going to do this. And it's just a fun, like, who doesn't remember their first kiss? Like, it's just a fun moment.
Ah, yes. That one time.
Well, hopefully it was a good experience.
Oh, it was. It's just one of those things where you're like, now that you're older, it's funny because when you're younger, you have this vision of what it would be like, right? And then in the moment, it might be just like that in your head. But then you get older, you have other different experiences, and now it's more of a fond memory. But then you remember that other one that it may not have been a first, but it was so damn good.
Yeah.
Whether it's because that was the moment that you now are with the person that it's been years, or the adventure or the fun because you were on a business trip or something like that, right? So
Yes.
yeah, so it's all that things. But that's definitely a one where as a reader and a listener, I'm going, how is this going to happen? Especially with slow burns, because you get
Yes.
more information up front. And if the trope is enemy to lovers, or if the trope is, friends to lovers of sorts, you're always kind of like, is it now? Oh, okay, no. Oh, there's another one. Oh no, and so you're like that moment of excitement and nerves of like and then when it happens, you're like, oh,
that tension. I love the tension. I love it. Like every single scene has that tension, you're like, this is so good. Is it gonna be now? Is it gonna be now? Is it gonna be now?
Yeah. Exactly. Those are always fun to read, and so satisfying because you're like, finally. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like a part one and then a part two in a book when it's like that, right? The first part is almost like, how do they get to that moment in their relationship, and then the next part is what comes next. How do they move forward from this, and how do they go into that journey to get to that HEA at the end for all of us,
right?
So, yeah.
How do they keep it together? Like how do they keep it together?
That's because life.
Right.
Yeah. And also too, when you write these books, there's always something that has to separate them, right? Or make it worth them knowing that this relationship is worth staying together. And so that also too is like, that's why I like the journey. It's like, okay, where are they going from here? How do they stay? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not there are some of my books that have like the breakup scene, but not all of my books do. And I think that's why I love the slow burn also, is because if you spend so much time building to that point, then you may have a shorter journey left in the book, and you may not have to have that breakup scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I do have some of my stories do have breakups, but a lot of them don't. Like a lot of them are just like, how do they figure out how to be together as people, and then they don't have to break up.
Yeah, trust me, I am all for that, because the number of times I have thrown a book across the room, literally and figuratively, because I'm not doing that to my Kindle, but wanting to, because they got into a fight and they broke up, but all they had to do was just talk.
Yes.
So to me that says like, God damn it, no, stop where you don't move from there and talk to each other. So when I have a book that I'm reading that has that slow burn, but also it's that there's no breakup, I'm like, yes, because they're talking to each other and they already did that part. Yay. Right?
They worked so hard to get here, they're not going to give it up easily.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
It's one of those, aha, yes, it's done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What made you decide to have your stories placed in audio?
So really just looking at the time that I started my first audiobook, let me start over. When my first audiobook came out in 2018, and I had been looking at the market by then, so I didn't know anything when I started. And then as I started to like peel back all the layers of the publishing world and was reading statistics, I was looking at the growth of the audiobook market and how much faster audiobooks were growing compared to print or ebook even at the time. So the leaps and bounds it was growing. And so I was like, I want to be in this world. I want to be in the audiobook world. I want some of my books out there. But I didn't have the cash flow. Like, it's expensive. I don't know that readers really realize the price tag that comes with making an audiobook, especially as an indie author, if you're self-published, and it's an expensive endeavor. So I had been looking into Audible, where you can do partner sharing with your narrator. And I went back and forth on that because, it's a 7-year agreement that you and your narrator are hooking to, and not everybody knows that either. And, that's a big risk if you find somebody who you're not compatible with, right? Like, you get stuck in this marriage over an audiobook that you're like, I don't even like this person anymore. So I did some more research again and was looking out there, and started kind of listening to the samples of people because my first book is takes place in Tennessee. So the heroine has like a Southern accent, not strong, but a soft Southern accent. And I wanted that to be reflected in the story. So I was listening to a lot of people who had accents, and I came upon Sarah Puckett's audition samples in the Audible world, and I reached out to her. She had a lot of books already, and I didn't expect her to say yes. But I went out and I was like, look, this is the story. This is kind of my journey. This is what I'd like, and I'd love to have you come on board. And she did. She read the story. She loved the story, and she came on and narrated it for me as profit sharing. So she's been the narrator on the whole album series from the get-go, and helped me find the male narrators, because the first 2 books are in single point of view, so they're only female. And then the last 2 books in the series are dual point of view. And so she helped me find the narrators to come on board for those. And I love both the voices. Neil Thorne and Michael Norman Johnson both did an amazing job with the stories. So she's just been a great partner. So some of it was luck. I really lucked out in bringing her on board, and the fact that she was so willing to help me. And she's just a great partner, because I didn't know, again, a lot about audiobook publishing, and she helped me with the business side of it and kind of getting books out there. It's the only series right now that has the audiobooks because of the expense of it, and I'm still trying to earn enough money to like be able to afford the rest of it. So, and Sarah has asked, do you want to continue and do the Anchor series? And I would absolutely do more with Sarah. It's just kind of my time frame and what I'm looking to do right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, you bring up a great point in that sometimes the listeners can get frustrated because they want more, which is great. That's not the problem. The problem comes in funding the more. Yeah. And just like when we look at a book that is like $15.99 for a paperback versus $25.99 for a paperback, and we're going, or in, Kindle, why is it $14.99 when it's just a document? You know what I mean? Right. Because I've questioned it, but I've also know that there's a lot of work that still goes into it, regardless if it's a Kindle or a paperback. Exactly. And the same goes for the audio. There is a lot of cost to it. I mean, you could narrate it your damn self as the author, right? But would it be a good product? It'd probably be okay. Could you hire some individuals that are narrating from their closet with no setup, or they sound like they're in the bathroom instead because of the echo? Yep, totally. But would it sell? No. You're kind of shortchanging the story, and you're totally shortchanging the audience to such a good story. So you want to make sure that there's a lot of things that are set up for the production of an audiobook that are set up correctly, whether that's finding the voice that's a match to the characters, the quality of you want to make sure it's a good book, because if there's pitching or dogs barking in the background, and I'm going, no.
And I mean, and that's the truth. I mean, the audiobooks are made or kind of broke or made based on the narrator or their voice. And I've heard that repeatedly. No matter how good the book is written, if the readers, the listeners don't like the narration, it ruins the audiobook. So yeah.
So I really like there's dogs barking or coughs going on in the background because the narrator didn't get an editor, right? I mean, so it's worth the expense. And there are different ways to go about it. And so those are the conversations sometimes that production companies have with the authors, and there's different ways to get it done. But at the end of the day, the listeners and the readers have to trust the author to know that when they give us their baby, it's going to be totally ready. Yeah. So it's a good way to kind of try to look at it from that perspective. I know again, I'm the one that also goes to the author. So hey, when's that next book coming out? I've been doing it to Dorinda Jones for years about that one particular character, and I don't know if she finally got to it, because the story finally came where she just did it to get me off her back. No, I'm just kidding. I love Dorinda, and I know she loves me. But it's just, we fall in love with the stories. Yeah. But we fall in love with the story that you guys write. And of course, sometimes that happens where a character that's just in the moment, potentially a throwaway character, but we're like, ooh, we want that. We want him. We want more of that. Or we want her. What about her? And
Yes.
yeah, so that's also where the desire for wanting more comes into play, including audio.
Right.
But at the same time, expensive.
Yes.
So if you want more, buy more books.
That's right. That's exactly it. Because I hate telling that to people because, I don't want people to spend more money than they can afford either. But,
right.
No, but the answer is once I can afford to do it, which means I need to sell a bunch more books.
Exactly. Yeah. But there's also, because you bring up a great point too, again, as far as the expense for the reader and the listener, it's called the library.
Yeah.
And many libraries will ask for recommendations and suggestions, and they're looking for these books that the community wants. And if the community is small and tiny and the book selections may not be there, the bigger metropolis ones will allow you to purchase almost like a subscription for the year, as low as sometimes $25. So you can be living in, middle of nowhere, Illinois, or middle of nowhere, Texas, and have a library card from New York City and get all the books that you want,
For audio. I know I have a couple of friends who do that. Like they have like subscriptions to a library in Boston or something, and then they get a bunch of audiobooks for free.
Yeah. Orlando's another one here that's fantastic with their audiobooks. So so I looked out. But that's how I kept my cost too. And it's still helping the author because the licenses were already sold, but you're also raving about the book and someone else will go buy it. So it's a lovely ecosystem of sorts.
It is. Yeah. It is.
Mm-hmm. Do you listen to audiobooks?
Okay, so this is the one I always get that I hate to answer to, and the answer is no.
It's okay to say no. It's fine.
Yeah.
No shame in it.
I think I'm a visual person. So like learning anything has always been visual for me. And my brain gets distracted really easily. So people are like, you just need to be listening when you're doing something like working out on the treadmill or cleaning the house or something. But seriously, I have tried those and my brain still goes somewhere else. So like I'll have it up, I'll even turn it up because people are like, make sure it's turned up really high. Because if you have it turned down low, then you kind of tune it out. And so like I'll turn it up really high. I'm like, and my brain is still lost thinking of something else. They'll say something and I'll be like, oh, I have to do blah, 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 blah. And then half the story's gone by and you're like, oh my God, I just missed a whole chapter.
Mm-hmm. And rewinding an audiobook is significantly a bigger pain in the ass than flipping a page.
It is.
Yeah. But no, don't feel, the way our brains work is, fascinating. And not everybody can do audio. And just like not everybody can read and sit there and, enough to read a book, which is why they have audio. So there's no shame and no one should be shaming. Okay. To not be able to get into audio. Some of us also too are in the mood. Some, as much as I want to listen to it every single day, sometimes I just need to blast, my Taylor Swift or some other story in there just to kind of get moving. And the audiobook won't do that for me,
Right? Exactly.
So that's okay. Mm-hmm.
I love that there is audiobooks now. And I love, as a teacher, I love that medium is now available for people, especially for kids who struggled with the reading, and it will never be part of their way their brain is wired, right? And I think it makes me so happy that those stories are still accessible now in a way that weren't, even 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool.
It's very cool. And from that perspective, again, we all learn differently. Some of us are note takers, and if you don't write it down, it just does not, stick. Others are visual, or otherwise can just hear it and then done. Or some of us can be a mix of all of that, depending on the what we're studying. Or like me in math, not going to happen regardless of how I do it, because I tried it all. Now, maybe if certain narrators were teaching me how to say it via an audiobook, which is math. It can't be done. But anyways, maybe then it would have stick more, but no, that's not how it works. So learning is important. How we learn, the fact that now is being considered is fantastic. And knowing that that's an option too for individuals that, may have eyesight issues or may, are blind and just can't, or don't have the time. I mean, life is busy.
It is literally all of those things, right?
Yeah.
So it's amazing that they're there.
Yeah. So it's okay when next time you get asked if you listen to audiobooks, don't go into it with like, oh, I hate this question or feeling like you should be ashamed. No, just own it and just dive in, saying, no, I don't, because my brain, blah, blah, blah,
My brain is wired differently.
Yes. And that's good. That's fine. Because if it wasn't wired that way, maybe we won't be getting the stories that you're writing either.
That's right?
Yes. So that's the thing, that the way that we are, there's a reason for it. Sometimes we're still trying to figure some of that stuff out, but it's still a reason, so it's totally okay. So I love asking the next question because I find it fascinating, the different answers. But you as a teacher, on top of now an author, what is your favorite word?
Oh, that's such a good one. I think the word that kind of comes to mind right away for me is hope. Because I know that seems so sweet and sappy, but I just feel like not only does our world need it, but once you give it up, you limit yourself, right? So I think it's such a powerful word. And I think it has nothing to do with a religious aspect at all. It's just simply like, we just need more of it. and it's kind of, if you stop believing in yourself, then nothing's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Life will be very miserable.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Thank you. And also being a teacher, especially with elementary students, what's your favorite curse word? Because we were talking about that before, how you had to get creative sometimes. So I'm like, where's she going to go with this one?
I know. I had to be really creative. My second book, My Life as a Pop Album, like the heroine in there doesn't swear. So she has all the words that I used to say for first graders, it was kind of fun. Just to put them in a page somewhere so people could see all the things I would use. Mm-hmm. But I would say probably shit is my favorite curse word. That's the one that comes out the most all the time. Mm-hmm. But according to my mother, who reads my books, she reads all my books before they're published also. And she's always like, you used the F word too much again. And I'm like, I guess when I write, my favorite curse word is the F word. But in my real life, it's shit.
Yeah. Well, again, a well-placed fuck. You know what I mean?
Seriously,
it just
right?
totally emphasizes or just describes the moment. Exactly. And so, yeah, but that is so cute that your mom reads the books and that she still tells you that.
Yeah. Actually, my dad reads my books. My father-in-law reads my books. So sometimes I'll be writing the sex scene and I'm like, oh my God, my dad, my mom, my sister, my father-in-law are all going to read this story.
Yeah, but still, at least it was a slow burn, which means that there are not going to be that many of those.
There's not that many. That's right.
Or just imagine if you were writing traditional, more,
yeah,
off the page.
I do have a couple books where it's not a slow burn. There's two of them, two of the 15, right? So
it's okay.
But two of them, and even then, they have the sex, but then it's like a slow burn to the next time. Do you know what I'm saying? So just how I write.
Yeah, but as long as your parents, in-laws or not, don't ever come to you and say, man, that was a good idea, you're fine. All right, or gotta try that one next time. No, you're fine. Okay, so you're good.
No, but my father-in-law did come to me. He's like, the first couple books, he's like, can you write a really tall person the next time your heroine? Can she be really tall?
Aww.
Okay, well, okay. I'll write a tall heroine for you.
Yeah, we all have our how we, can relate to the characters and things like that. I always wonder too, like when it comes down to the characters, if like significant other, even if it's in jest, I think there's always that moment of like, I inspired that one, right? And I'm like, no, you didn't. Yes, baby. Yes, you did. Okay, good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, it's those moments, you gotta come with the laughs.
That's right.
And again, it could have been worse. At least they were just asking for the heights. So that's good. So that's good. Leave it at that. Yes.
Leave it at that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, changing of that subject, because one of the things I do love doing and hanging out with the guest is playing the game of the 2 truths and a lie, because y'all get creative and sneaky, and also along the lines of also getting to know you guys better. And it's so much fun also to just try to figure out which one is the lie, especially when you guys have been so creative. So if you're ready to share your 3 things about you for us to figure out which is the lie.
Okay, I'm not very creative when it comes to this kind of stuff. So this is what you get.
Okay.
I'm a night owl by nature. I'm Team Spike in the Buffy battles. And drinking coffee makes me puke.
Okay, night owl. See, this is where I say the creative is not so much what the things are, but for an example, the night owl by nature of sorts, that part, that's where the creativeness comes into play, where there's part of it is true, but that other part makes it a lie because it's not. So yeah. I can totally see you as a Team Spike though. I mean, I know that you were probably shooting for Yay for Angel here and there, but I can totally see the whole Spike thing.
Well,
so
how can
hello, Spike?
I almost gave it away.
So I'm thinking that's not the lie though. So if it is, we're gonna have another conversation. Is the lie the coffee that makes you ill?
No.
Oh, okay. That's
coffee
good.
and me do not get along. I don't like so bad that if you even I can't do coffee flavored candies. I can't do. People are like, no, this caramel macchiato, blah blah blah. You can't even taste the coffee. I'm like, no, you can taste the coffee. No, anything coffee flavored and me do not get along.
Okay, but it doesn't make you puke, because you were saying, right? So.
Well, it can make me puke if you make me eat it or drink it.
Yeah, I know. All right, so that's true. Okay,
that's true.
Okay. So night owl by nature or Team Spike? Night owl by nature. I'm really hoping you're Team Spike.
The night owl by nature is the lie.
All right, yay!
I've never been a night owl ever in my whole life. I'm an early bird, which is good because with the 3 cats, they wake me up at 4 or 5 in the morning nowadays. So I'm like, okay, this is a little too early even for me, people.
Yeah, they did not get that memo, didn't they?
No.
But I'm sure that also helped as far as being a teacher too, because you were bed early enough to be able to get up early to manage those children and
yes.
teach and give them
I could have a smile on my face early morning.
Yes.
Where not all my teacher friends could, right?
Right. And you did not need coffee for it either, since you don't like it.
Well, I didn't say no caffeine. I did say no.
I said coffee, there's a difference. Yeah. A lot of people automatically, especially for the first thing in the morning, they'll go straight for I need coffee. But yeah, I know I have a couple of friends and people that I know in my life that were straight to the soda. First thing in the morning, just for that caffeine port, so.
For a long time I was soda. Now I'm just a chai drinker. So I drink chai
okay,
right and left.
Yeah. All right. But good. You're our Team Spike, because
Yes.
Yeah.
Which brings up normally the other thing that people are like, no, you can't. I'm not normally a vampire person. I'm not I've never been huge on vampire like stories and stuff, but I love Spike. Like
Yeah.
Angel, no. Spike, yes. And then and I love the Discovery of Witches stories. When I started that series, I didn't even know, like, the way the description is written for those books, or when I read them, the description, you didn't really understand that he was a vampire. So like you don't even really realize he's a vampire for like the first few chapters of that book. Like you get pretty much into the storyboard for you're like, oh shit, this guy's a vampire. And I still love those stories, but other than I'm not huge on vampires, they're just not mine.
Yeah, but funny enough, though, both the Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the Discovery of Witches, aside from the title, is really about the characters mostly. So if you take out the fact that they're vampires, you still get a really good story about self-discovery and, you know, family dynamics and friendships and not following the norm or conforming to the norm. And
you can't see me, but I'm over here cheering.
Yes, right? Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah. And for the Discovery of Witches is also just like accepting that you are good at some things and also accepting that you may not be good at everything, and sometimes you just suck, and that's okay, you know. And how do you fit into the family when you're the one that is not, you know, the skill sets may not be there, and if you really do want them, how do you go about it? So there's a lot of stuff there that if you remove the magical aspect of things, it still would have worked, I think.
Absolutely.
But Spike made it better.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, I will say with me, for him was the wit and the sarcasm that always got me with him. I was like, yeah. So
absolutely, yes, he was great. And then Angel was just kind of flaky.
Yeah,
you know, like, I mean, he was in and out of her life, and like, I mean, whatever. She was young, you were old. I get it.
Yeah, that's true too.
It was an age gap romance.
But it comes down to age gaps and vampires. That's always a funny line, because I'm going, well, technically you look like you're 17, but boy, you 1,000. So
That's true.
You know, but yeah, no, there's a lot of things that, you know, I think with Angel, there was like moments where I'm going, can we stop already with the I'm a bad guy and I don't have a soul, you know what I mean? Like, yes. You're still good, you're still working for the right cause, enjoy the relationship and shut up and stop bitching, you know?
Yeah.
Where Spike was like, fuck that shit, I'm just gonna do it.
I'm me. You don't like it too bad.
Yeah, exactly. So love that about them. But yeah, so yay, Team Spike, love it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we're in August, and next month is September. Not like you all didn't know that. I'm sorry. It's just, again, it's been a long day. But the Allure convention is coming up. That is the first one that I know of that is specifically and solely about audiobooks. And you're going to be there as a signing author.
I'm so excited about Allure because, you know, I've said earlier that Sarah Puckett is my narrator, and she's like took the risk to come on board with me when she didn't have to, but I've never got to meet her in person. So Sarah is obviously going to be there. She's one of the people that are running it, and I'm just so excited to be able to hug her in person for the first time, you know. So if you hear a random scream,
it's you.
Probably what it is. Me finally getting to hug Sarah for the first time. So yeah, I'm very excited. It's also my very first book signing.
Really?
So I've got tons of nerves, and I'm in California, so I have to fly. So I'm like trying to plan everything in advance, and I'm a planner in that regard for travel and stuff. So I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to meet people. There's so many author friends that are going to be there, and narrator friends, all of my narrators, other narrators that I look up to, that I can't wait to see. You're going to be there. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, no, I think, it's going to be so much fun. I think that just to see the energy, like there's different groupings in the sense of like the narrators that are usually working by themselves are not going to be with some of their peers, and they're going to be hanging out and meeting their clients, the authors that they work with, even sometimes even the production companies that they may have never met. Yeah. And like you were saying, you're now going to meet the person that helped you in this whole journey of audiobooks. And so at least now I know that if I hear that, oh my God, it's you. I'm like, it's okay. She's just hugging Sarah for the first time. She's fine.
Everybody go back to work. It's fine.
Yeah. Back to the let's go.
Don't call 911.
Yes, I go. There's swag and books to be signed. Let's go. And it's also thrilling that it's going to be your first. Talk about an experience overall.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. I can't wait.
Yeah, plus there are going to be a couple of parties. Are you going to be attending the Prohibition party and the Fire and Ice Gala?
The Prohibition one, I definitely am. The Fire and Ice, I'm not, because not only am I getting to meet Sarah, but I'm also getting to meet some of my book team for the very first time. So people who help me edit and proof and like
you're going to go hang out with
people
them
that I've never got to meet. Yeah, I feel kind of bad about it. I mean, I'm obviously going to be there for the full signing period.
No, you're fine, girl.
Yeah, but I feel like, I also owe them some of my time as well. And they're driving to Chicago to see me or flying to Chicago. And it's just, balance of.
Yes, the balance of saying thank you. I love and adore you for everything that you've done or going to party. Yeah, I mean, such a hard decision. As someone that has helped authors and as someone that has done, some of the stuff too, as far as the whole getting the book out into the public eye, I like to be able to at least hang a couple of moments with that individual. So good for you that you're doing that. Is Fire and Ice will be there another time, and I think it's very important to have those moments with those individuals that helped you in this journey, and to say thank you, but also just to hang out with someone that also loves your books, aside from the other fans that are going to get to meet you and stuff like that. So so that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's going to be a blast, and
oh yeah,
I can't wait to see all the pictures of the people in their beautiful dresses and fancy attire.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. Yeah, there's going to definitely be a lot of different things. There's also all the panels too. I think it's going to be a huge learning opportunity for many individuals regarding the industry. So that's always a good thing too. Because as much as we all love to have fun, sometimes sharing the knowledge is just as fun. At least for me, anyways. I love doing that.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
passing down what you've learned is just part of that whole paying it forward kind of thing too.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, if more people did that, I think we would be in a much better world. Unfortunately, we live in a world where there's a lot of takers, but knowing that there are more givers is always what makes me go, oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Otherwise it'd be like, Spike. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Funny. Let's get it done. Before we go, can you tell us what you're currently working on and what's coming up next for you that you can share?
Yeah. So I have a new release coming out in September. It's called The Last One You Loved, and it's a single dad, small town, forced proximity, second chance story. Has like all the feels, all the tension. Like he's not happy she comes back into town. There's secrets, there's suspense. It's just, I agree. I love every single part of it. It comes out September 14th. The cover reveal was this week. I'm really excited about it. For a long time, it was known as my cowboy second chance story because I couldn't find a name for it. And he's not really a cowboy. He's a sheriff. His family owns a ranch, but he's not like on the ranch. So he's not really a cowboy, but the song that inspired it, there's two songs that inspired that book, and it was Ain't Always a Cowboy by John Party, and then Lee Bryce's The Memory You Don't Mess With. And those two songs are like the story. Like it just is amazing. So I'm very excited about that. It's almost here. I can't wait. And then in the meantime, I'm also working on a series. It's called The Painted Daisies. It's a all-girl alternative rock band, very diverse, and it is also suspense. Each book will have its own happily ever after, their own couple, their own suspense element, but there will be a mystery element that goes through all 5 books, a murder mystery. So it's kind of fun. I'm not a plotter by nature. I'm an open the book and start writing kind of person. So this has been interesting. Like I've been getting into suspense a lot more. So you have to have obviously some plotting with that.
Oh, you have to know who did it at the beginning. Otherwise,
Yes, well, to some agree. You'd be surprised how much you can get away with. But that's a totally another topic.
She tried, folks. That's what she's trying to tell us. She tried.
So I'm really excited. I've got 2.5 of those stories written. One's with my developmental editor and one's still in progress. I'm trying to get through all of them before we release them next year, because I'm not a plotter and I want to make sure I can go back to all 5 stories and kind of tweak and fix and get things together. And because there is the murder mystery that goes through all 5, I want to release those fairly closely together so people aren't waiting. So I'm stockpiling them, but I'm writing them and loving them. And I love that it's an all-girl band. I love that they're, diverse characters, and it's just fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love it when you get the different couples, but also there's still something to figure out, especially when there's a mystery and you have that dun 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 moment. And thank you for wanting to release them close to back to back, because otherwise we're like, really? I want to know who done it.
I know. And I'm not a cliffhanger person. So this is so weird, because as a person, if I open a book description on Amazon and it says it's a cliffhanger, 80% of the time I'm not going to buy it. That's just me. There are people who love them, but for me, there will still be ones that suck me in, but most of the time I'm like, I don't want a cliffhanger. Mm-hmm. And these really aren't cliffhangers in the sense that each couple gets their own happily ever after. Their suspense element gets solved. It's just this one piece of the story that will go over.
Yeah.
But my mom has been like, I want to know. Mm-hmm. I want to know who the murderer is. And I'm like, sorry, Mom, you got 2.5 books still to go.
Yep. This part of the fun is the discovering and see if you can figure out, or if you were right, if you can guess from the very beginning. But yeah, those are, I was going to say that it's technically not a cliffhanger. So thank you for, explaining that. So, because there are listeners that are like, oh, hell no to the cliffhangers.
Yeah.
And, but I love it when there's something still to look forward to that keeps them tied together, aside from, the fact that they're all in the band or that they live in the same town and things like that, so.
Right. Yeah, it kind of is that whole world building again.
Thank you again so much for being my guest today, LJ. It's been so much fun getting to know you and learning about your books.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really appreciative of your time, and I'm honored to be on your podcast.
Aw, thank you. And I will be including all of their social media links. So if you're not following her, you will hopefully be doing that now and going right now to kind of click on it and follow her, because the books that she's talked about here are fantastic. The covers are great. Her website's also fantastic, by the way. Love it. So yeah, so I'll be including all that information as well as some of the stuff that we talked about here today over at the episode's post at Viviana, Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listenings.
Thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. Special thanks to Nixley Zenner, Carol Liebner, Brittany Robinette Leiter, Michelle Bastard,
Brandy Schmidt, April Branson.
The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive benefits including early access to episodes, shout-outs, special exclusive content, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobookluvin. We thank you for your support.
Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more information discussed in today's episode, previous podcasts, or the Audiobook Lovin Series, please visit our website, vivianaenchantressofbooks.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a positive review wherever you listen to our podcast. Until next time, happy listening.